to
I
actually...
want you to answer my question.
Well, no, not under the legal definition.
When Texas has to use its resources to absorb the costs associated with illegal immigration, isn't that commandeering?
Not within the meaning of the 10th
Okay, then I'm not going to bother with you if you're not going to actually engage on the terminology that you use. Mr. Brnovich, in February 2022, you drafted an Attorney General opinion on the federal government's duty to protect the states and the state's sovereign power of self-defense when being invaded. One of the questions you address is what constitutes actually invaded for the state self-defense clause and invasion for the invasion clause. Mr. Brnovich, what do you conclude the scope of invasion means in the Constitution, and does the Constitution's contrasting of invasion with insurrection, rebellion, and domestic violence create a situation where it can be applied to non-state actors?
Hey everyone, welcome back to Congress Lens. I'm Audrey, and if that opening clip caught your attention, you're not alone. What you just watched was Representative Harriet Hageman pressing a witness during a tense border hearing, and the exchange quickly turned into one of those moments where the room gets very uncomfortable very fast. In my opinion, moments like this are exactly why congressional hearings matter. When lawmakers ask direct questions, the public deserves direct answers. In this clip, Harriet Hageman clearly was not willing to let the conversation drift away from the point she was trying to make. Whether you agree with the policy or not, the idea of accountability is something most people expect from these hearings. In this video, we're going to break down what happened during this exchange, why Harriet Hageman pushed so hard for a clear answer, and what the testimony from former Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich adds to the larger debate about border policy, state authority, and the responsibility of the federal government. If you enjoy thoughtful breakdowns of major moments in Congress, make sure you like this video, subscribe to Congress Lens, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next analysis. All right. Let's get into it.
Thank you. Mr. Brnovich, you stated a moment ago that states want to do everything they can to protect their citizens. Would you agree that every single member of Congress should also take whatever steps are necessary to protect their citizens?
I believe every member of Congress takes an oath to swear and uphold the Constitution of the United States, and that includes protecting their citizens within their states or districts.
And Mr. Jadwat, you defend sanctuary cities under the concept of the 10th Amendment, which I'm really excited to hear a liberal talk about the importance of the 10th Amendment. I think we could have a lot more discussions about what we ought to be doing under the 10th Amendment. But you use the 10th Amendment claiming that it is an anti-commandeering theory. But isn't that exactly what the Biden administration is doing, is commandeering the resources of Texas and Arizona and every other state in the nation to absorb the costs associated with illegal immigration?
So commandeering refers to actually...
I want you to answer my question.
Well, no, not under the legal definition.
When Texas has to use its resources to absorb the costs associated with illegal immigration, isn't that commandeering?
Not within the meaning of the 10th
Okay, then I'm not going to bother with you if you're not going to actually engage on the terminology that you use. Mr. Brnovich, in February 2022, you drafted an Attorney General opinion on the federal government's duty to protect the states and the state's sovereign power of self-defense when being invaded. One of the questions you address is what constitutes actually invaded for the state self-defense clause and invasion for the invasion clause. Mr. Brnovich, what do you conclude the scope of invasion means in the Constitution, and does the Constitution's contrasting of invasion with insurrection, rebellion, and domestic violence create a situation where it can be applied to non-state actors?
Our opinion lays forth the distinction between domestic insurrections and rebellion versus an actual invasion. If you go back to the Federalist Papers, which were designed during the constitutional ratification, the debate in Federalist 41, Federalist 42, Federalist 43, James Madison set forth clearly that invasion constituted not only state but non-state actors. And in fact, during the Virginia ratification debate, one of the examples future President Madison used was the fact that there was pirates and smugglers off the coast of Virginia, and that Virginia had a right to defend itself against people that were breaking the law. And if the federal government and the federal Navy, just non-existent at the time, couldn't do anything, then the state of Virginia could. And even a lot of the conversation and the discussion we've had today is about whether states can enforce immigration law. The reality is that the federal government, the president has had his or her height of power when it comes to immigration law. However, the courts have never said that states do not have the ability to protect themselves, that states do not have the ability to stop or repel an invasion. And if you read our opinion, we lay forth not only the facts, and we've heard so many facts from this Congress about the number of people dying. I mean, my goodness, more than 100,000 Americans dying from fentanyl and drug overdoses. We've seen a spike in Arizona in the last 5 or 6 years from single-digit percentages into above 50% when it comes to those deaths. We've seen a spike in violence. And anybody, I would urge you to come to the southern border. And when you see rape trees where women are being victimized and traumatized by human smugglers and the drug cartels, you will ask yourself, why isn't this Congress, why isn't this administration doing more, not only to protect our citizens here, but also to stop people from being exploited by the cartels and gangs?
It's an incredibly inhumane situation that has been created by this administration. Joshua Trevino of the Texas Public Policy Foundation clarified that invasion means entry plus enmity, and the action of modern non-state actors can meet this threshold if they reach a scale where they overthrow or curtail the lawful sovereignty of a state. Mr. Brnovich, you were the Attorney General of Arizona, where you served as the Chief Legal and Law Enforcement Officer. Can you speak from your experience about whether the actions of the cartels displace state sovereignty and constitute entry and enmity?
As you know, the states are absorbing a cost not only fiscally, but a cost in human treasure as well. We just talked about the tragic drug overdoses and the drug deaths. We've also seen a spike in violence. If you talk to the sheriffs, not only along our southern border, but sheriffs in places like Pinal County, they will tell you they've seen a dramatic increase in the number of car pursuits and car chases, which also are dangerous to our community. And it seems like every day now you see a video of literally cartel members escorting people across our border. So as every day goes on and the administration refuses to act, the cartels are getting more and more powerful. They have made billions, if not trillions of dollars off of the last 3 years and what's happened. And as a result of that, my worry as an Arizonan and as a first-generation American is that Mexico is on the brink of becoming a narco state.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yield back.
After watching that full exchange, one thing stands out right away. Harriet Hageman was determined to get a clear answer, and that became the central tension of the entire moment. Harriet Hageman started by pointing out something that seems pretty basic. Members of Congress take an oath to uphold the Constitution and protect their citizens. That statement set the stage for the question Harriet Hageman was building toward. The concern was whether federal immigration policies are forcing states to carry costs they never agreed to handle. Then the questioning turned to Omar Jajuat, and this is where the exchange became more intense. Omar Jajuat defended sanctuary city policies using the concept of the 10th Amendment and the anti-commandeering principle. But Harriet Hageman turned that argument around in a way that I thought was very strategic. Harriet Hageman essentially asked this: if the federal government cannot force states to enforce federal policies under the 10th Amendment, then why should states be forced to deal with the financial and social costs tied to illegal immigration? That is when Harriet Hageman repeated the line that caught a lot of attention. I want you to answer my question. To me, that moment was not just about frustration. Harriet Hageman was trying to keep the discussion focused on the exact point being raised. Instead of a broad legal explanation, Harriet Hageman wanted a direct response to the argument about whether states are effectively being forced to absorb those costs. When that did not happen, Harriet Hageman chose to move on to another witness. That actually makes sense during hearings because lawmakers have limited time to question each panel. If Harriet Hageman felt the answer was not addressing the question, switching witnesses was the quickest way to continue the discussion. That is when Mark Brnovich, the former Arizona Attorney General, entered the conversation and added a deeper constitutional angle to the debate. Mark Brnovich explained that in a legal opinion written in 2022, the word invasion in the Constitution does not only apply to foreign armies. According to Mark Brnovich, historical discussions from James Madison and the Federalist Papers suggest that actions by non-state actors such as pirates or smugglers could also qualify under certain conditions. That point is important because Mark Brnovich was arguing that states may still have the right to defend themselves if the federal government fails to act. Whether people agree with that interpretation or not, it shows how serious the legal debate has become. Mark Brnovich also talked about the real-world impact states like Arizona are dealing with. Mark Brnovich pointed to rising drug overdose deaths tied to fentanyl, increases in violence, and human trafficking networks operating along the southern border. Another concern Mark Brnovich raised was the growing power of criminal cartels. According to Mark Brnovich, these groups have made enormous amounts of money in recent years, and that money translates into more influence and more danger in the region. And that brings the conversation back to Harriet Hageman's original point. Harriet Hageman was trying to highlight that states are facing real consequences, and the question Harriet Hageman asked was whether the federal government is fully carrying out its responsibility to protect those states. From my perspective, Harriet Hageman approached this hearing with a clear strategy. Harriet Hageman was not trying to have a broad philosophical debate about immigration. Harriet Hageman was focused on a specific constitutional question and the practical impact on states dealing with the situation on the ground. Moments like this are why congressional hearings often go viral. They show the clash between legal arguments, political priorities, and the real-life effects of government policies. But I want to hear from you. Do you think Harriet Hageman was right to press the witness the way Harriet Hageman did? Or do you think the witness deserved more time to explain the legal argument? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy these breakdowns of major moments in Congress, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Congress Lens, and share it with someone who wants a clearer look at what is happening on Capitol Hill. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.